The road stretched ahead, a narrow ribbon cutting through the heart of an endless forest. Towering trees lined both sides, their thick branches intertwining to form a dense canopy. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through, casting golden beams onto the pavement. The hum of the car's tires was steady, accompanied only by the soft tune playing on the radio. Inside the car, Ryan glanced at his wife, Emily, who sat in the passenger seat, admiring the scenery. Their 3-year-old daughter, Lily, sat in the back, hugging her stuffed bunny. She pressed her tiny face against the window, watching the trees rush by. "Are we close?" Emily asked, stretching her arms. Ryan glanced at the dashboard. "Another hour or so. This road is the fastest." They were traveling to Emily's parents' house for a long overdue visit. The drive was peaceful, the road mostly empty, save for the occasional bird soaring overhead. Then, without warning, the car jolted violently. A loud clunk echoed beneath the hood, followed by a harsh, grinding noise. Ryan's heart lurched as he quickly pulled over to the side of the road. "What was that?" Emily asked, concern in her voice. Ryan sighed, unbuckling his seatbelt. "No idea. I'll check." He stepped out and walked to the front of the car. As he lifted the hood, a thick cloud of steam hissed into the air. His stomach tightened. Emily unbuckled her seatbelt and opened her phone. "No service." Ryan groaned. "Figures." Meanwhile, in the back seat, Lily had already unbuckled herself. She pushed open the door, stepping onto the pavement. Her small fingers clutched her stuffed bunny as she looked around. A blue butterfly fluttered past, its delicate wings shimmering in the sunlight. Lily's eyes widened with delight. Giggling, she reached for it. The butterfly drifted away, deeper into the trees. Without hesitation, Lily followed. The forest was vast and quiet, the towering trees casting long shadows on the ground. The deeper she went, the softer the world became. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds. It all felt magical. She twirled, her laughter carrying through the trees. Then she stopped. Something felt different. The trees all looked the same. The road was gone. "Mommy!" she called, turning in a slow circle. "Daddy!" Silence. A cold wave of fear rushed through her tiny body. She turned and ran in the direction she thought she had come from, but the more she ran, the more lost she felt. "Mommy!" she cried. "Daddy!" Still no answer. Tears filled her eyes as she clutched her bunny tighter. Her tiny chest heaved with frightened sobs. She took a shaky step forward, but the ground was uneven. She stumbled, falling onto the forest floor. Back at the car, Ryan wiped his forehead. "This is going to take a while." Emily looked around. "Where's Lily?" Ryan's stomach dropped. His eyes scanned the area. "She was just here." Emily's voice turned sharp. "Lily! Lily!" They rushed around the car, searching frantically. "Lily!" Emily's scream echoed through the trees. Panic set in. Ryan's pulse thundered in his ears. He ran to the forest's edge, eyes darting between the trees. "Lily! Answer me!" Only the whisper of the wind replied. Emily grabbed Ryan's arm. "She wouldn't go far, right?" Her voice trembled. Ryan's jaw tightened. "We have to find her now." They ran into the trees, calling her name, their desperate voices swallowed by the vastness of the forest. Lily sat beneath a large tree, hugging her bunny. Her tiny fingers trembled as she sniffled. The forest was so big, and she was so small. Then she heard a sound, a rustling in the leaves. Her breath hitched. A pair of golden eyes emerged from the shadows. A wolf. Its fur was thick and gray, its body sleek and powerful. It stepped forward, its paws silent against the forest floor. Lily's heart pounded. The wolf tilted its head, watching her intently. Tears streaked down her face. She wanted her mommy and daddy. She wanted to go home. The wolf took another step closer. Its golden eyes softened. Then, in a slow, deliberate movement, it lay down beside her, its thick fur brushing against her arm. Lily hesitated, then slowly reached out. Her tiny fingers sank into its warm coat. "Wolfie," she whispered. The wolf did not move, did not growl. For the first time since she had gotten lost, Lily didn't feel alone. Back in the forest, Ryan and Emily continued their desperate search. Their voices were hoarse from screaming. Emily sank against a tree, sobbing. "We have to find her, Ryan." "We will," Ryan said, though his voice wavered. "We have to keep looking." Darkness crept over the forest. Their voices faded into the whispering wind. Meanwhile, a little girl and a wolf sat together beneath the stars, bound by fate in a way no one could have foreseen. The forest stretched endlessly under the glow of the rising moon. Shadows danced between the towering trees, their swaying branches whispering with the wind. Somewhere in the darkness, a little girl sat curled beneath a massive oak, her tiny arms wrapped around a stuffed bunny. Lily shivered, her cheeks damp with dried tears. Her wide blue eyes peered through the dim light, searching for something familiar, but all she saw were trees stretching high into the sky. She sniffled, hugging her bunny tighter. Beside her, the wolf remained motionless, its golden eyes locked onto her. It had been there for what felt like hours, watching over her. Its fur, thick and gray, shimmered in the moonlight, making it look almost ghostly. Lily wiped her nose. "Wolfie," she whispered again. The wolf's ears twitched, acknowledging her voice. It did not move closer, nor did it move away. The forest at night was a different world, alive, breathing, filled with sounds she had never heard before. The chirping of crickets mixed with the occasional distant hoot of an owl. The leaves rustled, stirred by an unseen breeze. Then in the far distance, a sound made Lily freeze. A howl, not the wolf beside her, but another. Lily's grip on her bunny tightened. Her small body tensed as fear crept into her heart. She turned to the wolf, her lip trembling. "Wolfie?" The wolf lifted its head, ears perked. Its body grew rigid, muscles tensed beneath its thick coat. Then came another sound, a rustling in the bushes nearby. Something was moving. Lily whimpered, pressing herself against the tree. Her tiny hands clutched the rough bark, her heart pounding. She could hear the snapping of twigs, the crunch of leaves under heavy paws. The sound grew closer. The wolf stood, stepping protectively in front of her. A low growl rumbled deep in its throat, a warning to whatever approached. Its golden eyes scanned the darkness, ready to strike if needed. Lily held her breath. Then between the trees, two glowing eyes appeared. A second wolf. Lily let out a tiny gasp. This wolf was larger than the first, its fur darker, its body broader. It stepped forward, head lowered, sniffing the air. The first wolf growled again, louder this time, its tail raised, hackles bristling. For a long moment, the two wolves stared at each other, tension thick in the air. Then, without warning, the second wolf let out a sharp exhale and turned, vanishing back into the trees. Lily sagged with relief. "It's gone," she whispered. The wolf beside her stood still for a few moments longer, ears listening for any more threats. Then finally it relaxed. Lily let out a shaky breath. The wolf looked back at her, its golden eyes softening. Slowly, hesitantly, Lily inched closer to it. Her tiny fingers reached out, sinking into its thick fur. The warmth of its body was comforting against the night's cold air. "Thank you," she whispered. The wolf let out a low huff, then lay down beside her once more. Lily hesitated, then snuggled against its warm side. Her tiny fingers clutched its fur as her eyes fluttered close. The rhythmic rise and fall of the wolf's breathing soothed her, and before she knew it, sleep took her. The wolf did not sleep. It remained awake, ears pricked, eyes scanning the darkness. It had chosen to stay. Meanwhile, deeper in the forest, two desperate voices echoed through the trees. "Lily!" Emily stumbled over a root, her hands scraping against the rough bark of a tree as she caught herself. Tears streamed down her face, but she barely noticed. "Ryan," she choked out, "she's out here somewhere. We have to keep looking." Ryan, panting, swept the flashlight beam over the towering trees. His heart pounded in his chest. "We will find her," he said, though his voice shook. "We have to." His mind was filled with worst-case scenarios. Was she scared, hurt, alone? Emily's sobs grew heavier. "We should have been watching her." Ryan clenched his fists. His knuckles were scraped, His legs sore from running, but he refused to stop. "We're not giving up," he said firmly. "Come on." They continued into the night, calling her name, unaware that their little girl was safe, sleeping beside an unlikely guardian. Sunlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting golden streaks across the forest floor. The crisp morning air carried the scent of damp earth and pine, and distant birds chirped their cheerful melodies. The dark, eerie forest of the night had transformed into something new, alive, awake. Lily stirred. Her small fingers clutched her stuffed bunny as she shifted against the thick fur beside her. Sleep clung to her for a moment, her dreams blending with reality. For a brief second, she expected to wake up in her warm bed, sunlight streaming through her window, her mother's voice calling from the kitchen. Then she opened her eyes. The towering trees surrounded her. The wolf was still there. Lily's breath hitched as she turned her head. The creature's golden eyes met hers, calm and steady. It had not left her. It had stayed. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, sitting up slowly. "Good morning, Wolfie," she murmured. The wolf did not move but twitched its ears at the sound of her voice. Lily's tummy suddenly rumbled loudly, making her frown. She placed a hand over her stomach. She was hungry. So hungry. At home, her mommy would be making pancakes with syrup or maybe toast with jam. She could almost taste it. But here there was nothing, just trees and dirt. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she bit her lip and wiped them away with her sleeve. She had to be brave. The wolf stood up, stretching its lean body. Then without a sound, it started walking. Lily gasped, scrambling to her feet. "Wait! Don't leave me!" The wolf paused. It glanced back at her. Lily hugged her bunny to her chest. "Can I come too?" The wolf blinked once, then turned and continued walking. Lily took that as a yes. She followed quickly, her little feet stumbling over roots and uneven ground. The forest looked different now, but it was still so big. She had no idea which way led home, but Wolfie seemed to know where it was going. She trusted it. The wolf led her deeper into the trees, pausing now and then to sniff the air. Its ears twitched at every little sound. Sometimes it would stop, turn its head, listen, then keep walking. Then it halted near a bush. Lily watched as it sniffed the ground and pawed at something beneath the leaves. Her eyes widened when she saw what it had uncovered. Berries. Her tummy grumbled again. She hesitated. "Can I eat them?" The wolf sat back on its haunches, watching her. It did not stop her. She knelt down, picking up one of the small round berries. It was deep red and soft. Slowly, cautiously, she brought it to her lips and took a tiny bite. Sweet juice burst in her mouth. Her face lit up. "Yummy!" She grabbed a few more, popping them into her mouth. The hunger in her belly eased just a little. The wolf remained still, its golden eyes watching her every movement. After she had eaten as much as she could, the wolf stood again. It looked at her, then turned and began walking once more. Lily quickly got up to follow. "Where are we going, Wolfie?" Of course, the wolf didn't answer, but it didn't leave her behind either. She stayed close, her tiny fingers brushing against its thick fur as they moved through the towering trees. Miles away, Ryan and Emily were still searching. Emily's legs ached. Her throat was raw from screaming their daughter's name, but she refused to stop. Ryan's flashlight beam cut through the dense undergrowth. His face was lined with exhaustion, but his determination burned strong. "Lily!" Emily cried out again. The only answer was the whisper of the wind through the trees. Ryan clenched his fists. "We need more people searching." Emily choked back a sob. "We should never have let her out of our sight." Ryan turned to her, his voice strained but firm. "We're going to find her." She nodded weakly, but the fear in her eyes was undeniable. They had no idea that their little girl was safe, that she was walking beside an unlikely guardian. Lily took slow, careful steps as she followed the wolf. She still didn't know where she was, but she wasn't alone, and for now that was enough. Lily's small feet stumbled over the uneven ground, but she kept moving. The forest stretched endlessly around her, its towering trees forming a green maze. Sunlight streamed through the canopy in golden streaks, dappling the earth with shifting patterns. The wolf walked ahead, its powerful body moving gracefully through the thick undergrowth. Lily followed closely, her little hand brushing against its fur now and then, finding comfort in its warmth. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted Wolfie. Her tummy still felt a little empty, but the berries had helped. At least she wasn't as hungry as before. The wolf suddenly stopped, its ears perked up, muscles tensed. Lily froze. "What is it, Wolfie?" she whispered. The wolf didn't answer, of course. It only lowered its head, sniffing the air. Then, without warning, it turned sharply and ran. Lily's heart lurched. "Wait! Don't leave me!" Panic surged through her as she scrambled after it. Her tiny legs pumped as fast as they could, but the wolf was quicker. Then she saw what it was chasing, a rabbit. The little creature darted through the underbrush, its white tail flashing as it zigzagged away. The wolf lunged, swift and silent. Lily gasped, hands flying to her mouth. With a final leap, the wolf caught the rabbit. Lily's chest tightened. She had never seen anything like this before. The wolf stood over its prey, golden eyes flicking up to meet Lily's gaze. Tears welled in her eyes. "Wolfie, did you have to?" The wolf didn't look guilty. It simply picked up the rabbit in its jaws and trotted back to her. Lily sniffled, her lip quivering. "I don't like it." The wolf dropped the rabbit at her feet. Lily looked away. She didn't understand. Why did Wolfie have to hurt the bunny? Couldn't it have just eaten berries like she did? The wolf nudged the rabbit toward her. Lily shook her head. "I don't want it." The wolf sat back watching her. Then after a long moment, it picked up the rabbit and carried it a few steps away. Lily turned her back, hugging her stuffed bunny close. She didn't want to see what happened next. She listened instead to the rustling leaves, the chirping birds, the soft crunching of paws on dirt. When she finally turned back, the rabbit was gone. She wiped her face, still feeling sad. But Wolfie hadn't left her. It sat nearby, licking its paws. Lily took a shaky breath. "I guess you were hungry too." The wolf's ears twitched, but it didn't respond. After a moment, it stood and began walking again. Lily followed, her heart a little heavier than before. The sun climbed higher, casting warmth over the forest. Lily's legs ached, but she didn't stop. She was used to walking. At the park, at the zoo with Mommy and Daddy. But this was different. The ground was rough, filled with roots and rocks. Still, she didn't complain. Wolfie was with her. The wolf moved steadily, pausing now and then to sniff the air. It was searching for something. Water. Lily didn't realize how thirsty she was until she heard it, the gentle murmur of a stream nearby. The wolf turned toward the sound, picking up its pace. Lily hurried after it. A moment later, she saw it. A small, clear stream winding through the trees. Sunlight danced on its surface, making it sparkle. Lily ran forward, dropping to her knees at the edge. Water! She scooped some up in her hands and drank eagerly. It was cool and fresh, unlike anything she had ever tasted. The wolf lowered its head and lapped at the water beside her. For the first time since she got lost, Lily felt, okay, she wasn't home, but she wasn't alone, and for now that was enough. Meanwhile, Ryan and Emily had reached a breaking point. Emily collapsed onto a fallen log, her hands trembling. "Ryan, we have to get help. We can't do this alone." Ryan ran a hand through his disheveled hair. He didn't want to stop. He didn't want to waste time. But she was right. They needed more people. "Come on," he said, grabbing her hand. "We're going back to the road." Emily hesitated. "But what if she's close?" Ryan's jaw clenched. "We'll come back, but we need more eyes searching." Tears spilled down Emily's face. "I just want my baby back." Ryan pulled her into a tight hug. "We'll find her." And with that, they turned back toward the road, desperate to get help. Lily wiped her nose with the back of her hand as she trudged forward. She wasn't sure where they were going, but she wasn't alone. And for now, that was enough. Lily walked beside the wolf, her tiny steps quick and careful. The sun hung high overhead, filtering through the trees and casting shifting shadows on the ground. The forest stretched endlessly, unfamiliar and vast. But Wolfie was always there, leading her forward. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted him. Her tummy grumbled again, louder this time. The berries had helped earlier, but now she was hungry again. She looked up at the wolf who was sniffing the air, searching for something. "Are we going to find more food, Wolfie?" she asked softly. The wolf didn't answer, but he changed direction, moving toward a thick cluster of bushes. Lily hurried to keep up, her little hands brushing against the leaves. Then she saw them, more berries, bright and plump. Her eyes lit up. "Berries!" She plopped down onto the ground and reached out eagerly. But this time, the wolf let out a low growl. Lily froze, her hand hovering above the fruit. "What's wrong?" The wolf sniffed the berries, then turned away. Lily pouted. "They look like the ones from before." But Wolfie didn't eat them, and he had eaten the other ones. She frowned, pulling her hand back. "Are they bad?" The wolf didn't respond, but its warning had been clear. Lily sat back, crossing her arms. She didn't like being hungry, but she didn't want to eat bad berries either. "Okay," she sighed. "No berries." The wolf turned and walked away, and she quickly followed. Hours passed. Lily's little legs ached, and her tummy hurt from hunger. But she didn't cry. She had to be brave. Wolfie stopped suddenly, his ears perking up. Lily blinked. "What is it?" The wolf sniffed the air, then darted forward. Lily gasped and ran after him. "Wait!" She stumbled through the underbrush, twigs snapping beneath her feet. Then she saw what Wolfie had found, a squirrel frozen in place. Lily's heart clenched. She knew what was about to happen. The wolf lunged. The squirrel bolted. For a moment, Lily thought it would get away. But then with a swift snap of his jaws, Wolfie caught it. Lily turned away, hugging her stuffed bunny tightly. She didn't want to see. She heard the sounds of tearing, the quiet crunch of bones. Her stomach twisted, but this time, it wasn't just from hunger. Wolfie was a good wolf. He was helping her, but she didn't like this part of the forest. She wished she could just go home. The sun moved lower in the sky, and the shadows stretched longer. Lily sat beside Wolfie, staring at the ground. Wolfie nudged her arm with his nose. She glanced up, eyes still sad. "I don't want squirrel." The wolf huffed and sat beside her. Her tummy ached. She wished she had pancakes, or toast, or anything from home. But home felt so far away. She sighed. "Will we find more berries soon?" The wolf didn't answer, but after a moment, he stood and started walking. Lily took that as a yes. She got up, hugging her bunny, and followed. As they walked, the trees seemed to whisper. The forest felt quieter than before. Then Wolfie stopped again. Lily looked around. "What is it?" The wolf's ears twitched. Then she heard it too. Water, a soft, trickling sound, growing louder as they moved forward. Lily's heart lifted. Maybe she could drink again. She hurried after Wolfie, pushing past branches until... A stream! Lily gasped. The water sparkled, just like the last one. She dropped to her knees and scooped some into her hands, drinking quickly. It was cool and fresh, soothing her dry throat. Wolfie drank beside her, his golden eyes watching her carefully. She wiped her mouth and smiled. "This is a good place, Wolfie." The wolf didn't respond, but he lay down beside her. For the first time all day, Lily felt a little safer. She wasn't home, but she wasn't alone, and for now that was enough. Meanwhile, Ryan and Emily had gathered a search team. Police officers, volunteers, and neighbors spread out along the road, calling Lily's name. Emily clutched Ryan's hand tightly. "She's out there, Ryan. I know she is." Ryan nodded, his jaw tight. "We'll find her." But as the sun began to set, their hope grew thinner. Emily's voice broke. "She's just a baby." Ryan squeezed her hand. "We're not giving up." A police officer approached them. "We're going to keep looking all night." Emily wiped her tears. "Thank you." The searchlights flickered on, cutting through the growing darkness. The search wasn't over. Not yet. Back in the forest, Lily yawned. The day had been long, and her eyelids were heavy. She curled up next to Wolfie, resting her head against his soft fur. His warmth made her feel safe. As her eyes fluttered closed, she whispered, "Good night, Wolfie." The wolf didn't respond, but he stayed beside her, watching over her as she slept. And for now, that was enough. The forest darkened as the sun disappeared behind the trees. A cool wind rustled the leaves, sending a shiver down Lily's spine. She clutched her stuffed bunny tighter, glancing around nervously. The towering trees looked different at night, their shadows stretching and swaying. Wolfie stood beside her, his golden eyes gleaming in the dim light. He didn't seem afraid. His presence made her feel a little safer. She took a deep breath. "Mommy always sings to me at bedtime," she whispered. Wolfie's ears twitched, but he didn't move. Lily lay down on the soft moss, her tiny body curled up against the wolf's warm fur. He smelled like the forest, like leaves and earth. She sighed, resting her head on her bunny. "Good night, Wolfie," she mumbled sleepily. The wolf didn't respond, but he stayed close. Above them, the sky was a sea of stars. Lily watched them twinkle, her eyelids growing heavy. Then she drifted into sleep. Wolfie didn't sleep. His ears twitched at the slightest sound. The forest was alive with noises, the hoot of an owl, the rustling of leaves, the distant howl of another wolf. He stayed alert, watching over the little human beside him. Then a scent caught his nose. His body tensed. Something was nearby. A low growl rumbled in his throat as he scanned the darkness. The scent was unfamiliar, sharp and wild. Then a shadow moved. A pair of glowing eyes appeared in the underbrush. Another wolf. Wolfie stood, his muscles coiled. The black wolf took a cautious step forward, sniffing the air. Its eyes flickered between Wolfie and Lily. Wolfie growled. The message was clear. "Stay back." The black wolf hesitated. Then with a flick of its ears, it turned and melted into the shadows. Wolfie didn't relax. He waited, listening. But the night remained still. Satisfied, he lay back down, curling protectively around Lily. She sighed softly in her sleep, completely unaware of the danger. Wolfie licked her tiny hand once, then rested his head beside her, and finally he closed his eyes. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the trees. Birds chirped overhead, welcoming the new day. Lily stirred. She rubbed her sleepy eyes, blinking up at the canopy of leaves. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then everything rushed back. She wasn't in her bed. She wasn't at home. Mommy and Daddy weren't here. Tears welled in her eyes, but she sniffled them back. She turned and saw Wolfie watching her. Her heart ached. "I want to go home," she whispered. The wolf tilted his head. She hugged her bunny tight. Then Wolfie stood and nudged her gently. Lily wiped her nose. "Are we walking again?" Wolfie flicked his tail. Lily sighed. "Okay." She got to her feet, her legs sore from the day before. But she followed him anyway. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted him. Miles away, Ryan and Emily hadn't slept. They stood near the road, their faces pale with exhaustion. A police officer approached. "We've expanded the search deeper into the forest." Emily nodded weakly. "Please, just find her." Ryan clenched his fists. The search dogs had picked up Lily's scent, but they lost it near a stream. Ryan's jaw tightened. "She's still out there," he said. "She's alive." Emily gripped his arm. "We have to believe that." The officer gave them a reassuring nod. "We won't stop looking." But the forest was vast, and Lily was small. Lily's tummy growled. Wolfie led her to a bush covered in small, dark berries. He sniffed them, then sat down. Lily hesitated. "Are these okay?" Wolfie didn't move. She picked one carefully and popped it into her mouth. It was sweet. She smiled. "These are good, Wolfie." She ate a few more, feeling a little better. The wolf simply watched. Then his ears perked up. Lily paused. "What is it?" Wolfie stood, sniffing the air. Then, without warning, he bolted. Lily gasped. "Wait!" She ran after him, her heart pounding. She didn't want to be alone. Branches scraped her arms, but she didn't stop. Wolfie was running fast, leaping over roots and dodging trees. Then, a growl. A deep, rumbling growl that made Lily freeze. She skidded to a stop, her eyes widening. Wolfie stood a few feet ahead, his fur bristling, and in front of him, a snarling coyote. Lily's stomach twisted. Mommy had told her about coyotes once. They looked like dogs, but they weren't friendly. Wolfie growled, lowering his body. The coyote snapped its jaws. Lily took a shaky step back. "Please don't fight," she whispered. But the coyote wasn't leaving. Wolfie bared his teeth. Lily clutched her bunny to her chest, heart racing. She didn't want Wolfie to get hurt. She didn't want to be alone. The coyote took a step closer, growling low. Wolfie lunged. Lily screamed. The forest erupted in chaos. Wolfie leaped forward, his teeth bared. The coyote snarled, lunging at him. Their bodies collided with a force that shook the underbrush. Lily screamed, clutching her bunny tight. Wolfie snapped his jaws, barely missing the coyote's throat. The coyote twisted, its sharp teeth grazing Wolfie's shoulder. Wolfie growled, shaking off the pain. The coyote lunged again. Wolfie dodged and countered, slamming his body into the attacker. The coyote yelped, but didn't back down. Lily's heart pounded. She wanted to help, but she was too small. The coyote tried to circle Wolfie, searching for an opening. Wolfie blocked its path, his golden eyes locked onto the predator. Lily backed away, her hands shaking. "Please stop," she whispered. The coyote lunged again. This time Wolfie was ready. He ducked low, then sprang upward, sinking his teeth into the coyote's shoulder. The coyote howled, thrashing wildly. Wolfie held on. Lily covered her ears. Then with a final shake, Wolfie threw the coyote to the ground. The coyote scrambled to its feet, panting hard. It hesitated. Then with a sharp yelp, it turned and bolted into the trees. Silence fell. Lily peeked through her fingers. "Wolfie!" The wolf stood still, his fur bristling. His sides heaved as he caught his breath. Then slowly he turned to her. His golden eyes softened. Lily ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "You're okay!" Wolfie licked her cheek. She pulled back and gasped. "You're hurt!" A small wound bled on his shoulder. Lily frowned. "Mommy puts Band-Aids on boo-boos." She didn't have Band-Aids, but she had something else. She ripped a strip from her dress and carefully pressed it against the wound. Wolfie winced but didn't pull away. "There," she whispered. "All better." Wolfie licked her hand. Lily smiled, but her stomach growled. She looked down, suddenly remembering she hadn't eaten much. Wolfie nudged her, then trotted ahead. Lily followed, holding onto his fur. She didn't know where they were going, but she trusted him. Ryan and Emily stood near the search team, their eyes scanning the endless trees. A radio crackled. "Still no sign of the girl." Emily's breath hitched. "She's out there. I can feel it." Ryan gritted his teeth. He wasn't giving up. "We need more people," he told the officer. "More dogs, more everything." The officer nodded. "We're doing everything we can." It wasn't enough. Ryan clenched his fists. "Hold on, baby, we're coming." Lily and Wolfie walked for hours. She was tired, hungry, but she didn't complain. Wolfie led her to a small stream. The water sparkled in the sunlight. Lily knelt down, scooping water into her hands. It was cold but refreshing. Wolfie drank beside her. Lily giggled. "You drink funny." Wolfie flicked his ears. Then he trotted toward a bush and sniffed the branches. Lily followed. She recognized the berries from before. "More food!" She picked a few, popping them into her mouth. "Sweet," she sighed happily. "I miss pancakes." Wolfie tilted his head. She giggled. "You wouldn't like them. Too sticky." She ate a few more berries, then wiped her hands on her dress. Wolfie perked up suddenly. Lily frowned. "What is it?" Wolfie's ears swiveled. Then, a rustling in the trees. Lily's breath caught. Was the coyote back? Wolfie stepped in front of her, his body tense. Lily grabbed his fur, holding on tight. A shape emerged from the shadows. Lily gasped. It wasn't the coyote. It was a wolf, but not Wolfie. This one was bigger, darker. His yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. Lily shrank back. Wolfie didn't move. The big wolf sniffed the air. Then slowly he stepped forward. Wolfie growled low. The big wolf stopped. Then he huffed. Wolfie's ears twitched. Lily held her breath. The big wolf looked at her. Then he turned and trotted away, disappearing into the trees. Lily exhaled. "What was that?" she whispered. Wolfie didn't answer. Instead, he nudged her forward. Lily didn't argue. She was too tired. The sun was getting lower. She yawned. Wolfie led her to a patch of soft moss. Lily curled up beside him. She missed her bed. She missed Mommy and Daddy. But Wolfie was warm, safe. She closed her eyes. Wolfie stayed awake, listening to the night. Miles away, Ryan sat on the ground, his head in his hands. Emily knelt beside him. The search teams had found nothing. No footprints, no clues, nothing. Ryan's heart ached. "Where are you, baby girl?" Emily wiped her eyes. "She's strong. She'll hold on." The officer approached. "We'll keep looking at first light." Ryan nodded weakly. He wouldn't stop. Not until he found her. Lily slept. Wolfie watched over her. The forest was full of dangers, but he would protect her, always. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting shifting patterns on the forest floor. A cool breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine. Lily stirred, her tiny fingers clutching her stuffed bunny. She blinked, her vision blurry with sleep. The soft moss beneath her felt strange, unfamiliar. Then she remembered. She wasn't in her bed. She wasn't home. Her heart clenched. Wolfie lay beside her, his golden eyes watching closely. She sniffled, rubbing her eyes. "I miss Mommy and Daddy." Wolfie flicked his tail but didn't move. She hugged her bunny tighter. "Do you think they're looking for me?" The wolf didn't answer, but Lily wanted to believe they were. She took a shaky breath. "Okay," she whispered. She got to her feet, wincing at how stiff her legs felt. Wolfie stood too, giving a small huff before nudging her forward. Her tummy rumbled. She sighed. "I'm hungry again." Wolfie trotted ahead, leading her through the trees. Lily followed, carefully stepping over roots and stones. She was learning. She wasn't as scared as before. Miles away, Ryan and Emily sat near a search team's camp, exhaustion in their eyes. The officer in charge approached. "We'll push deeper today. The search dogs are picking up faint traces." Ryan's heart pounded. "She's alive." Emily wiped her tear-streaked face. "Please find her." The officer gave a firm nod. "We won't stop." Ryan clenched his fists. They had to find her, before it was too late. Lily and Wolfie reached a small clearing. Bright berries grew near a fallen tree. Wolfie sniffed them, then sat down. Lily hesitated. "Are these okay?" Wolfie didn't move. She picked a few and ate them slowly. They weren't pancakes, but they helped. She sighed. "I wish I had warm food." Wolfie tilted his head. Lily giggled. "You wouldn't like pancakes. They're sticky." She ate a few more berries, wiping her hands on her dress. Wolfie suddenly perked up, his ears swiveling. Lily frowned. "What is it?" Then, a rustling sound. Lily's breath caught. Was the coyote back? Wolfie tensed. A shadow moved between the trees. Lily clutched Wolfie's fur. Then, a rabbit darted from the bushes. Lily gasped. "A bunny!" The rabbit twitched its nose, then disappeared into the underbrush. Lily giggled. "It was so fast!" Wolfie huffed. She patted his back. "You're fast too." The wolf flicked his ears. Lily finished eating, her stomach feeling better. She felt stronger. She could keep going. For the next few days, Lily followed Wolfie deeper into the forest. She learned to drink from the stream. She learned which berries were sweet and which were sour. She learned how to listen. The forest spoke in whispers, leaves rustling, twigs snapping, birds calling. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was becoming part of it. Wolfie was always near, watching over her. At night, she curled up beside him, warm and safe. But sometimes she still cried. She missed home. She missed bedtime stories and soft pillows. She missed her parents. Wolfie would lick her cheek, comforting her. Lily would sniffle, hugging him tight, and then she would sleep. Ryan and Emily refused to leave. The search teams grew, volunteers joining in. Posters with Lily's face covered the nearby towns. People prayed, people hoped, but the forest was vast, and Lily was still missing. Ryan stared at the trees, his heart aching. Where was she? Was she safe? Emily clutched his hand. She's out there. I know it. He nodded, but the days were passing, and the nights were getting colder. One evening, Lily sat on a rock, swinging her legs. Wolfie sat beside her, watching the trees. Lily hugged her bunny. Do you have a family, Wolfie? The wolf didn't move. Lily sighed. I miss mine. Wolfie looked at her, his golden eyes soft. Then he stood and nudged her. Lily smiled. Okay, let's go. She followed him, stepping carefully over the roots. She was stronger now, braver, but she still longed for home. As the sun set, Wolfie led her to a familiar spot, a soft bed of moss beneath a large tree. Lily curled up, her bunny in her arms. Wolfie lay beside her, his fur warm against her skin. She yawned. Good night, Wolfie. The wolf didn't respond, but he stayed close. And as Lily drifted into sleep, she dreamed of home. The days passed into weeks. Lily no longer counted them. The forest had become her home. She had learned how to move quietly, how to listen, how to find food. She had learned how to survive. Wolfie was always near, watching over her. He led her to fresh water, to warm places, to safety. She trusted him completely. But at night, when the sky turned dark, she still dreamed of home. She missed her parents. She missed her bed. She missed warmth that wasn't just Wolfie's fur. She missed love. She curled up beside the wolf, whispering, Do you think Mommy and Daddy can see the stars too? Wolfie didn't answer, but he stayed close, and that was enough. Miles away, Ryan stood over a large map, exhaustion deep in his eyes. Emily sat beside him, gripping a crumpled tissue. We've looked everywhere, she whispered. Ryan clenched his jaw. Not everywhere. The officer sighed. We're running out of leads. Emily shook her head. We can't stop. Ryan's voice was firm. We won't. The officer hesitated, then nodded. The search would go on. Lily watched the leaves change. Green turned to gold. Gold turned to brown. They crunched under her feet. She laughed, kicking them into the air. Wolfie tilted his head. Lily giggled. It's fun! She twirled, watching the leaves swirl. For a moment, she forgot. She wasn't lost. She wasn't alone. She was just a little girl playing in the wind. But then, the air grew colder. The nights became harsh. Lily shivered, curling deeper into Wolfie's fur. He was warm, but it wasn't enough. She missed blankets. She missed fire. She missed home. Wolfie nudged her. She sniffled. I know. She had to be strong. She had to keep going. One morning, Wolfie led her to a cave. Lily hesitated. It was dark inside. She bit her lip, but Wolfie walked in first, so she followed. The ground was soft with dry leaves. The air was still, safe. Lily curled up, hugging her bunny. Wolfie lay beside her. She sighed. It's nice here. Wolfie flicked his tail. Lily smiled. Maybe this could be home, for now. Ryan and Emily sat in silence. A cold wind blew through the camp. Winter was coming. Emily's voice was small. She's so little. Ryan swallowed hard. I know. The officer approached. We have one last area to search. Ryan stood. Then let's go. He wouldn't give up. Not now. Not ever. The days grew shorter. The nights grew colder. Lily wrapped herself in leaves. Wolfie hunted, bringing her food. She ate. She survived. She grew stronger. But something was missing. She missed hearing a bedtime story. She missed hugs. She missed laughter. She missed being a little girl. She missed home. One evening, Wolfie pricked his ears. Lily frowned. What is it? Wolfie stood, alert, listening. Then he growled. A sound echoed through the trees, faint, distant, but real. A voice, a human voice. Lily gasped. Her heart pounded. She ran forward, but Wolfie blocked her path. She frowned. What's wrong? Wolfie huffed. His golden eyes were serious. Lily's lip trembled. I have to go. Wolfie didn't move. Lily's breath hitched. Why was he stopping her? Didn't he want her to go home? Didn't he want her to be happy? Tears welled in her eyes. Please, Wolfie, she whispered. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, he stepped aside. Lily's heart soared. She ran, faster than ever before, through the trees, through the leaves, toward the voices, toward home. Lily ran. Her heart pounded. Her breath came in short gasps. The voices were close. Human voices. Real voices. Tears blurred her vision as she pushed forward, stumbling over roots and rocks. Mommy, Daddy, she screamed. The voices stopped. Then, Lily! A gasp, a cry, a sound so full of hope it made her chest ache. Mommy, she sobbed. She burst through the trees, falling into the open. A bright light flashed. Then arms, strong, shaking arms wrapped around her, pulling her in. Lily! Emily clutched her daughter, crying so hard she could barely breathe. Ryan dropped to his knees, his hands trembling as he touched Lily's face, her hair, her arms, making sure she was real. You're here, he choked out. You're really here, Lily sobbed. I missed you. Ryan pressed his forehead against hers. We never stopped looking, sweetheart. Never. Emily held her tighter, as if afraid to let go. Around them, searchers stood frozen, their faces etched with shock and relief. A miracle. She was here. She was alive. After all this time. A low growl rumbled from the trees. Ryan tensed. The search team reached for their weapons. Lily gasped, twisting in Emily's arms. No, she cried. Don't hurt him. Everyone froze. Slowly, Lily stepped back. Wolfie stood at the edge of the clearing, his golden eyes locked onto hers. He had followed, her guardian, her protector, her family. She sniffled, wiping her face. It's okay, she whispered. Wolfie stood still, his body tense. This was it. She was leaving. She knew it. He knew it. Lily swallowed hard. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Wolfie flicked his tail. He didn't move, didn't come closer, didn't run away. Just watched. Ryan hesitated. That's the wolf? Lily nodded. He saved me. Emily clutched her daughter tighter. The search team exchanged wary glances. A wild animal, a predator, and yet he had protected her. Ryan slowly exhaled. Let him go, he said softly. Lily blinked up at him. Ryan gave her a small smile. He was looking out for you, wasn't he? Lily nodded. Ryan looked at the wolf. Then it's time we look out for her now. Lily's heart squeezed. She turned back to Wolfie. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, Wolfie gave a slow, knowing blink. Lily bit her lip. Goodbye, she whispered. The wind rustled the leaves. Wolfie turned and vanished into the trees. Lily watched until he was gone. Then she turned, back to her parents, back to the world she had lost, back home. The hospital was bright, too bright. Lily squinted against the harsh lights, blinking up at the beeping machines and white walls. It felt strange. After so long in the forest, everything felt too loud, too big, too unnatural. Emily brushed her fingers through Lily's tangled hair. You're safe now, she whispered. Lily sighed, leaning into her mother's touch. Safe. The word felt strange. Hadn't she been safe before? With Wolfie? She closed her eyes. Her parents were here. She was warm, she was home. But part of her still missed the trees, the rustling wind, the quiet hum of the forest, the soft, steady breathing of the wolf who had never left her side. Weeks passed. News spread. A miracle child found after a year. Doctors marveled. Scientists wanted to study her. But Ryan refused. "She's our daughter," he said firmly. "Not an experiment." Emily agreed. They had her back. That was all that mattered. Still, Lily struggled. The world felt different. She had changed. At night, she dreamed of the forest. She dreamed of Wolfie. She wondered if he was safe, if he missed her too. One evening, Ryan found her sitting by the window, staring at the trees beyond their house. He sat beside her. "You miss him?" Lily nodded. Ryan wrapped an arm around her. "You know," he said, "wolves don't forget the ones they love." Lily's eyes widened. "Really?" Ryan smiled. "Really?" Lily pressed her forehead to the glass. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. She smiled. "Maybe, just maybe." Wolfie was watching, protecting, waiting. Lily closed her eyes. She could almost hear his howl. Strong, loyal, forever.